Now, if you've ever done your research on Sonic the Hedgehog, you would know that after the Sega Genesis, Sonic was kind of having a weird time going from 2D to 3D. Now, I know that's a really long way to say that Sonic had a rough transition to 3D, but the point is that it wasn't just Sonic, it was Sega themselves. In fact, the next console, the Sega Saturn, was actually a very love it or hate it system. On one hand, there was a lot of great 2D games and third-party stuff. But at the same time, there was not that many games going for it, and there was never a mainstream Sonic title. But as we know, well, as some dedicated Sonic fans know, Sonic Extreme was supposed to be a mainline Sonic game, but it was actually canceled and under completely bad development hell. The Sega Saturn was actually the second to last Sega console, right before the Dreamcast. As the story goes, the system was actually not great to develop for, and Sonic was struggling to get off the 2D plane. But there was one game though, well, besides Sonic Jam, but there was another game. Sonic R is a racing game published in 1997 for the Sega Saturn, and later on for the PC in the Sonic Gems collection for the GameCube, and the PlayStation 2 if you're in Europe and Japan. Rage unlocked, yeah. Now, of course, you might be saying, yeah, what about the other Sonic racing games? Well, obviously, you'd just be talking about Sonic Drift, but Sonic Drift, to me, sucks. It was a classic example of a potentially good gimmick going bad because of terrible execution. Now, I'm going to be honest, Sonic racing on foot makes sense, although I don't really mind him racing on a hoverboard either, like in Sonic Riders, which is actually my favorite Sonic racing game, and also my favorite racing game of all time. And a good 2D version of Sonic R was released called Sonic Rivals, but that's another story. Sonic R is a very infamous game, particularly because of the terrible controls, awful soundtrack, and it only has 5 levels, which means there's a lack of content. Yeah, only one of those things are probably objectively true. Sonic R is a racing game where the characters race on foot, with the exception of Amy and Dr. Robotnik who drive vehicles. Sonic is the fastest who can also double jump. I think it's one of the first times in the franchise where he can actually do so naturally, minus the electric shield. Tails is pretty fast, but I swear his handling isn't that good, but he can fly, so he can take advantage of shortcuts easier. Knuckles has the best handling of the previous 3 and has the best glide he has ever had in the entire Sonic the Hedgehog series, I'm not kidding. Also, all 3 of them have the spin dash, but it's only kind of useful at the start since you have to completely stop moving to do it. With them, you can also do the spin attack, which I think lets you gain speed on downward slopes like the other classic games, but I'm not sure. Amy is without a doubt the worst character in the game to me. Her car is pretty slow, and the only redeeming factor is that she can actually hover above water, which is not applicable to every stage, especially with different weather conditions. And she has a boost button, which is bad because you can't turn when you're using it and it takes time to recharge. Eggman, while he does use a vehicle, has the best handling in the game with speed that isn't that bad, but he can actually get kind of slippery. Also, his model is really weird. Metal Sonic is pretty much as fast as Sonic and jumps pretty high to compensate the fact that he doesn't have a double jump and can actually hover above water for a short time. Tails doll! He can't jump, his turning is awful, but at least he's silent when you play as him. On that note, yeah, every single other character has some kind of feedback noise when you're controlling them. Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and also the Eggman Robo, before he actually starts flying, have literal pitter-pattering feet when they actually run, which to me is extremely annoying since I hate footstep sounds in games, and the rest of the characters have some type of engine sound. It's really loud, kinda annoying, but I kinda like it for some reason. Well, not the footstep sounds, those can go to hell. Metal Knuckles is pretty much Knuckles, but I swear his glide might be better than Knuckles. I mean, look at this. Egg Robo is boring. I think both him and Eggman can shoot projectiles at other racers at the cost of some rings, which is pretty unfair since none of the other racers can actually do that. But other than that, he's actually pretty clunky to control. To get all of the other side characters, well, for one, to get Eggman, you need to actually basically play all the stages in the game. To get all of the other characters, you needed to get all 5 Sonic tokens and finish in the top 3 of races of Grand Prix mode. You then need to actually come in first in a one-on-one match with the character that you're about to unlock. Kind of like the Super Smash Bros. Games. Also doesn't make sense. I thought Grand Prix mode was when you do a whole bunch of races in succession without going back to the menu. Here it seems to be just a single race select. No, whatever. Anyway, to unlock all the other characters, you need to do that. Which at first, when you do it, you might notice it's a little tricky because there are large open levels if you've never played these games before. Which, you know, when I record this, I didn't. Some levels really needed a map since it can be kind of tricky to guess on how to get to the goal. More on that later. It's not that bad, but when you play this game for the first time, prepare for a lot of retries. But then eventually getting all the Sonic tokens in one race should be pretty easy eventually. You can also get all 7 Chaos Emeralds by collecting rings and going through a path that has the emerald and coming in first. It's not too bad. Finally, after collecting all the Chaos Emeralds, you unlock the final character, Super Sonic, or as a certain someone calls it, the Destroyer of Souls. He has godlike speed, great handling, has a double jump, and absolutely blows away the competition. It'd be great if they made everyone have a super transformation for balance purposes because Super Sonic is absolutely broken. If you select him in the stages, then you are going to win. If you don't select him in the stages, then you are going to lose. Actually, more on that, the game has a pretty slim selection of characters. What about Mighty, Ray, Vector, Charmy, Espio, Heavy, Bomb, and I know they technically didn't really exist, but Tiara Bubowski and Honey the Cat? Or rather, make some new characters. In all honesty, the Sonic cast was pretty limited back in the day, and it makes the game seem like there's not a lot going for it in terms of racers. Also, speaking of this game, it has a lot of balancing issues. Characters are clearly better than others in this game, and it only gets worse when you start unlocking the extras. When you race with Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, or Eggman, then you're only going to go up against those racers and not the extras. But when you actually choose one of the extras, like Metal Sonic, Metal Knuckles, Tails Doll, and Egg Robo, then you have to go up against the extras and not the originals. And the thing about that is that Super Sonic is actually considered one of the extra characters. So when you choose one of the extra characters, you're going to have to go up against Super Sonic, which, like I said before, is incredibly broken. Now, in terms of control, which is one of the most important factors of a racing game, it's actually a mixed. On one hand, it's bad because they all control like tanks. The turning is awful, especially when you collide with the wall and have to turn around, and it can be very slippery sometimes. On the other hand, which is basically my hand now, I think the control is actually pretty amazing because they still feel smooth to control in a way, and the game has the fact that you're playing as Sonic the Hedgehog on foot going for it psychologically. Some people say that it's better to think of Sonic R as a car racing game, but I don't know. I like playing as Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, Metal Sonic, and Super Sonic, and like to, imagine that's basically a prototype Sonic adventure game, which honestly probably was looking at the development cycle of that. I feel like the level design and the way that the characters move really complement this game. Maybe in anything else it would be bad, but it's like the track design is based on these controls. Sure, you'll bounce around the levels, but it kind of keeps the flow going. The L and R buttons can also allow you to make sharper turns. Some say that it's useless, but to me, doing this made the turning a lot better. Adding on to the lack of characters are the lack of levels. Only 5 tracks to choose from. 5! Even when you play the game to unlock everything, it only takes about an hour or probably even less to unlock everything, play all the tracks, and beat the game. If this game was $60 when it came out in '97, maybe I can actually understand the backlash it got with that in mind. Speaking of the tracks, they're actually good and have a lot of great cues from classic Sonic games. Lots of multiple paths, huge exploration factor, awesome sense of speed, skillful shortcuts. It's actually pretty great. I can even see some of the influence from Sonic Adventure, which would come out a year after this game. As I said before though, when you're trying to collect everything in the game, it can be tricky to navigate through the levels because of how open they are. I'm looking at you, Regal Ruin, and Reactive Factory. All the levels in this game have the letter R. It's not that bad, and you eventually learn to appreciate the openness of the levels. In the similar way that the classic Sonic games had, the same design formula, it always keeps the flow going as well, which is important for Sonic in general. I would love for other Sonic games and even other racing games in general to take cues from this game in terms of designing the tracks. Maybe not make it so, tricky, but having so many different ways to get to the finish line is awesome, and even the little details are nice to stop and look at too. Speaking of design, the game also looks graphically amazing. Makes me really wish we got an actual Sonic game for the Saturn because these levels are colorful and vibrant. This is what I mean when the game's art style surpasses the console's limitations so that the graphics look timeless. Now, as for the music, I don't really get why there was such an uproar over the songs in this game. Maybe it was started by someone who didn't know how to take a heartbreak, but these tracks are some of the best Sonic songs, period. Richard Jacques was the composer of the tracks, and the vocals were done by, God bless her soul, TJ Davis. The praise should honestly go to these two, especially the beautiful TJ. I used to think these songs were some kind of R&B song sung by a black woman. So imagine my surprise when it was actually done by a white lady. Absolutely incredible. I mean, I was just listening to the soundtrack of this game while actually doing the artwork for this review. And I gotta say, even now, I love listening to the soundtrack, even when I'm just like working out, when I'm going on car trips, when I'm literally editing videos. I mean, this soundtrack is absolutely beautiful, and I never understood why people didn't like it and it got so much like backlash. I mean, do people really just not like beautiful things? Sonic R remains to be one of my favorite Sonic soundtracks of all time. While on their own, they don't seem to work for a racing game, but even then, they're still amazing songs on their own. They should be on albums, and basically, this album should be like one of the best selling albums of all time. Hey, notice how on the artwork for the album, you can see Sonic Adventure Sonic, except he looks like he's textured to be like he's Sonic, classic Sonic. You get it? You know, because they're doing a little transition in 3D. Anyway. But in practice and how they're used, they actually work pretty freaking well for the tracks they play in. Regal Ruin has his song Back in Time, which, you know, it makes sense for, you know, a stage like this. Reactive Factory has Work It Out, which really works out for this. I didn't even mean to do that pun. And Radiant Emerald, if you're actually playing a Supersonic, has Supersonic Racing, which fits because it's the final track in the game. And Diamond in the Sky just works as well because, I mean, look at this. That song's so beautiful. At this point, the hate for these songs just need to die. These songs are objectively amazing and need to be seen as such. Sonic R is an absolute gem of a game that seems to weirdly get a lot of hate, but it's a lot of hate that doesn't seem to reflect or affect the game at all. I honestly didn't go into this game feeling like I was going to hate it or anything like that. I mean, personally, I don't ever feel like I would ever do that for a game that people, you know, give their opinion on because, you know, I don't just, you know, assimilate myself into other people's opinions and feel like that's my own, like so many other people do. But at the same time, this game seemed way too beautiful to garner for me to like expect a little bit of hate from it, you know? I played this game on a whim. I have never ever completed this game or played it for an extended amount of time. I really wanted the Sonic Gems collection back in the day because, well, I had a PlayStation 2 and I had Sonic Mega Collection. Of course I wanted to play stuff like Sonic CD, and that's another game that I actually wanted to play for a long time, but I couldn't get the chance to because I didn't grow up with the GameCube. Now, Sonic R, when I actually did have the chance to play it, I wasn't really into it at the time, but now that I've actually sat down and played it, I'm actually surprised I went this long without doing so. This game, while pretty lacking in content, is amazing. In fact, that's pretty much my only problem with this game, besides the levels being too open. If only there were more tracks, characters, and better replayability in general. You can play the multiplayer mode, which I've neglected to talk about, but to be honest with you, I don't play a lot of multiplayer games as it is, so I don't really have that much to say about it. In fact, I didn't even record footage for it. But the point of the matter is that any game is enhanced with multiplayer. And I don't really think I need to go over multiplayer that much in general if that's in mind. A game could be as bad as Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, but then when you put multiplayer in it, I mean, imagine a co-op playthrough of Sonic 06. Now that sounds amazing, unironically amazing too. The only thing that this game needed to change is more, and I'll leave it at that. With good controls, beautiful levels, a unique approach to gameplay, and an absolutely tranquil soundtrack, Sonic R remains to be one of the greats on Sonic's legacy. While it won't beat out my favorite Sonic racing games as well as my favorite racing games period, Sonic Riders and its sequel, Zero Gravity, it definitely was a great attempt that I hope integrates it into a future game or something. There's a lot going on for this game, but for now, there's other games to talk about. I give Sonic R an 8 out of 10. So yeah, that was basically another, video game review. I haven't done another review for a game since, Wreck-It Ralph, and I'm also working on another one, and right now I'm working on a Half-Life review. I decided to do something different for this one, just have something of a more a commentary style that actually flowed well, and I actually knew exactly what I wanted to talk about. This was also a good game to practice a review with, not just because I actually did like the game genuinely, but it was also good to practice with this game because I'm trying to get into doing reviews and stuff like that, and I guess you could say I'm kind of trying to learn and warm up before I can actually get into the bigger stuff. And Half-Life definitely is a bigger game to talk about, but at the same time it is it's a bigger game, but it's not that long of a game at the same time. And I feel like I could either go with no script or with script or with notes. I chose notes. And I feel like that's actually worked pretty well for me. I actually did that for a couple of the videos in the past, namely the Sonic Unleashed Why You Can't Play That Anymore video. So I probably will do more stuff like that going forward. So yeah, with that being said, that's going to be the end of the review. Half-Life will be coming up next, but not immediately. These videos actually do take time to make, and I hope you guys really like this video, because the process of making this video has been pretty interesting, but I've actually liked it a lot. I feel like I'm really proud of this video and how it will be. Of course, I'm doing this before I actually edited this video completely, but I feel like I'm already going to pretty much like this game and how I'm going to look at it and everything. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this video, like it, subscribe if you want to see more. All my social media will be in the description down below. Well, with that being said, guys, thank y'all for watching. Have a good night, everyone watching us. And as always, hasta.